Think about what your future should look like. What do you want your practice to be? What do you want your day to look like? When you go to retire, what do you want that to look like? And then reverse engineer it. Start with the end in mind. Are we laying the foundation to get to where we want to be? And don't settle and don't sacrifice that thing. Because at the end of the day, it's your business and you need to make sure that you're in control of your future and don't settle. We're financial advisors, right? We deal with the time value of money all the time. Let's take an arbitrary measure. Let's pretend that we think that we're being held back through marketing, just as an easy one. And we think that if we marketed how we wanted to, we could onboard X amount of clients per month. Extrapolate that out over your career, and then assign a present value. That's what you're forfeiting. I think that if people got objective and focused on the future and not just today and what maybe feels good today, I think that that would open their mind a lot. Be relentless in that pursuit of what you want your future to be. Servicing your clients should be, in my opinion, the top. Growing your practice, taking care of your future should also be important. I think sometimes we get too focused on like the economics, or especially if people get worried about some big check they're going to get. I would tell them to take that very, very, very far down the gradient of importance and to think about what future do you want for your clients, what future do you want for your practice, and focus there. A pros and cons analysis. I still remember sitting in my basement with a piece of notebook paper. It said leave in one column, it said stay at Edward Jones in the other column, and I wrote down all the reasons why I would leave and all the reasons why I would stay. When I got back to it, this is only my personal experience. The Edward Jones column was really just kind of filled with things like big brand name. I had a salary at the time. And it all was just selfish, for lack of better terms. Like the fact that I get a salary at Edward Jones during that time does not benefit my clients at all. It doesn't do a thing for them. And the other column over here was like 20 different reasons. It was like, access to new products, investments, better financial planning software, so on and so forth. I was like, well, the evidence is so compelling right now. This is what's best for my clients. Because at the end of the day, our business is non-existent without the people that trust you, and those are your clients. And if you're not relentlessly looking out for their best interest, I think you're doing a disservice to them and yourself.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. A few financial advisors over the years have given me just a little bit of feedback that I only seem to have top producers on my podcast with decades of experience and decades of time to be able to build really solid client relationships to discuss their success on the independent channel. And people have said, of course, Corey, those people are going to have really successful transitions. And while that feedback definitely has some merit, the fact is, even financial advisors with just a few years of experience, can have a really successful transition if they choose the right firm and follow the right playbook. And today we have on Travis Jensen, formerly of Edward Jones, was one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. He's going to be on the podcast today just to talk about his journey to launch his own independent firm, Jensen Complete Wealth, a little over a year ago. And he just has an amazing story around client retention when he moved from his old firm and growth since he's been at his new firm. And I think it's just going to be really inspiring to newer financial advisors that are potentially considering making a transition and even veteran advisors alike. He's done it all as well with some pretty big distractions along the way that I am sure that we will dig into. So Travis, thanks again so much for hopping on the podcast. And I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey. This is great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, this is all kind of where it started in the very beginning between me and you. So it's awesome. It came full circle.
It is, man. I still remember I was watching I'm an Iowa guy. I'm from Iowa, so I was a big Caitlin Clark fan. I still remember watching the Caitlin Clark game. I think it was against LSU in the Elite Eight, and watching that. And then after it, going on YouTube, and I think I typed in leave Edward Jones or something, and you came up, and then I think I watched every video in your library. So
that's awesome.
It's the full circle moment, man.
I love it. I love it. So Travis, before we get started, if you don't mind just telling us, a little bit about yourself, how long you were at Edward Jones, a little bit about your professional background would be super helpful.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised from right here where I'm at today, Northeast Iowa, very rural, real small communities. Went to college here, stayed here, worked professionally here for about 6 years before I, became a financial advisor with Edward Jones. Always wanted to be an FA, always wanted to be involved in what I thought was the stock markets, right? So in college, I got a finance degree and I did not want to leave this area. All my family's from here. So I kind of found out early on that it's not easy to be a 21-year-old in rural Iowa and just jump in to be a financial advisor. So I spent some time in another business for about 6 years. And then from there, found an Edward Jones opportunity. One thing leads to another. I started with Edward Jones. Was with Edward Jones. I think my can serve date was March 7th of 22, and I transitioned March 28th of 24. So I was essentially there for 2 years, and then the rest is history. Joined Commonwealth, founded my own independent firm, and now I'm on a podcast with Corey.
That's awesome. So when you first reached out to me, what were some of the things that kind of drew you to the independent model? Like I remember from our conversation, like you knew clearly what you wanted. You had confidence, like you had some like pretty strong ideas in terms of like what the future looked like. Can you kind of share that with can you share that with the audience?
Yeah. So right away, early in my career, I knew I wanted to be an advisor and I knew I wanted to be a business owner. And it was made pretty apparent to me early on at Edward Jones that I was not a business owner. I was a financial advisor and I was with a great firm, and Edward Jones is awesome. But it was just apparent to me that there was a lot of restrictions that I maybe didn't love. And I was constantly educating myself about the business, not just within the firm, but about the business as a whole. And I really saw the future being a shift towards financial planning, a shift towards maybe fee-based practices or becoming a fiduciary only or the RIA route. And I just didn't see how that was going to happen where I was. Some very simple things like access to certain products I may have wanted or software that I wanted and wasn't allowed to is very frustrating. And I'm super independent and a really big self-starter, and I don't like being told no. So if I think something's best and I know what's in the best interest of the client, I know what's best, like I don't want to be told no, right? Like I want to do what's best. And so it's pretty apparent early on, like, hey, I need to be independent. And then, a few things happened and it just confirmed inside of my head, like, we have to do this. And so that's where we ended up reaching out to you, man.
Yeah, I remember we were, right at the point you reached out to me. You were about to buy your own office space, have Edward Jones as the tenant. And I said, whoa, let's hold on. Let's slow down for a second. If independence is something really want to do, there could potentially be some, pretty significant hooks, in doing that. And we were kind of off to the races. We explored, a lot of different flavors of independence. When you were going through the process, like what were some of the things that just, really excited you about the future or being able to take your client service model to the next level?
Yeah, so it's worth talking about the quick sidebar. It's worth talking about that office because you had told me, like, hey, pump the brakes on this. And full disclosure, I really didn't listen to you. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, God was watching out for me because that real estate deal fell apart.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with anything. The real estate deal fell apart. And
Yeah.
hindsight being 2020, thank God it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so a lot of different things led to it, man. And I mean, we kind of talked about them already, just seeing that the grass was potentially greener, more opportunities, more software, more investments, different ways to serve clients, the ability to eventually go fee only. Those were the biggest like draws for me, right?
Awesome. Was there any like one thing throughout the process that you saw and you were just like, man, like this is going to be a game changer for me?
I would say it's two-part. Ownership is a huge thing. Owning your practice is so important. That was probably the biggest thing. The other is just the ancillary things that go along with that. Marketing was huge. I remember doing my due diligence investigations. I didn't go anywhere. I did it all from home. I had a newborn, so I was not going anywhere. But I remember seeing like, wow, these folks can advertise way different than I could, or they can do way more creative marketing than I could, or they could use lead generation services where I couldn't. And it was just like, I can't not do this.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned the business ownership part. In my opinion, when I'm talking with a W-2 financial advisor, that's just one of the biggest things that come up. And it's not just having the ability to sell your business, having the ability to own your own data, but I'm sure almost every W-2 advisor somewhere in the United States, they know someone that's dedicated their career to a firm. They've mostly done, all of the right things to the best of their ability. And literally overnight, the rug is, ripped from them. And in 30 days, they're struggling to keep their business, keep their reputation, trying to find a new firm because they were, let go from, for at other firms would probably just be, a slap on the wrist. And I don't know if I ever shared this with you, Travis, but I was talking with an advisor a couple of months ago. His best friend got fired from a W-2 firm, and he wound up going independent. And he just said, Corey, it just gives me so much comfort that, number one, my family is going to get taken care of for all the hard work that I'm putting into this, but also, I have 400 clients. In order for me to be put out of business now, 400 people need to fire me, instead of just one person overnight, completely changing your life. And that's just always something that really stuck with me.
Yeah, for sure. And me too, like in my unique situation, um, I was so young into the business that I never thought about like the I could get terminated. That was never a thing. We ran a super compliant practice, super ethical, highest client satisfaction indexes. Like that was never a concern. But what was a concern was reputation control. And I thought that that was very big. We are in very, very, very small towns. And for me, my image of my business now is only my own. It doesn't matter. I'm not part of a big company where if they do something that some people don't like, or if another advisor that's on the same team does something that people don't like, that image was being reflected upon me. And I didn't love that. I want to be able to control my image, control my reputation, and let that speak for itself alone. And I thought that that was important. I thought it was maybe inhibiting some business at the time. And then once I went independent, I found out it was. So it was very, very, very wise. And you only gain that, in my opinion, through ownership. You have to own your practice.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So we had a conversation a couple weeks ago. We've been in touch since your transition, and every single conversation we've had has just been, Corey, things are going so well. Like I brought over such a good amount of my clients. I'm so thrilled. I've been continuing to grow. Can you talk about that experience a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. So transition went really smooth. I kind of thought it would. And we brought essentially, everybody outside of there's a couple that really surprised me and got kind of hurt me a little bit, but I get it. And what's most important is those folks are where they believe is best,
Yeah.
and that's what matters. But for overall client retention, it was essentially everybody, and it was like within a 30-day window. I jotted it down. So, it was at about the 45-day mark. Our business was actually larger than it was when we left Edward Jones. And yeah, it was kind of crazy. And I'll never forget, we went independent, we slapped our name on the window, and it was within the first 8 weeks, we onboarded 13 brand new households in the first 8 weeks. So we did all the transition from everybody else and onboarded 13 brand new households that we never had a business relationship with in the past.
So let me stop you there for a second because, I tell financial advisors this, all the time that, if you're confident in your client relationships, the business is going to come with you. It's not the big box brand, it's a personal relationship, with you. And there are people that are 2 years, into being at a W-2 firm like you were. There's people that are 5 years in. There's people that are 30 years into this that are absolutely terrified that when it comes to it, the advisors are going to pick, the big brand name. Like why do you think you were so successful bringing your practice over?
Yeah, I think that like the confidence just comes from the body of work. I worked incredibly hard and I still do to this day, and we service our clients incredibly well. And at the end of the day, it's just like the confidence came from that body of work. I would just reflect upon maybe a family or maybe an individual and just think about that. And I would think like, there's no way, there's no way that these people do business with anybody else. There's no way. And then I just kind of remember specifically going into transition. I'm a huge college wrestling, Olympic wrestling fan. And one of my all-time favorites is a guy named Terry Brands. He's a co-head coach at University of Iowa. And he's got a documentary about himself. And in that, he talks about how you're going to get what you earn. That's his famous quote, you get what you earn. And I remember going into transition and like a little bit of doubt started to creep in. And I remembered that. And I just told myself, you're going to get what you earned. And if everybody comes with you, you earned it. If nobody comes with you, I earned it. It's back to the drawing board. The sun will come up tomorrow and we'll just start again. And that gave me the confidence. Like, I've earned this because of the trust and because of the service and because of the relationships and because of what we do for these folks and how closely we partner with them. I'm going to get what I earned. And I really believe that.
What were the reactions from your clients?
It was kind of wild. It was kind of wild because all of them were like so shocked. I remember there's a couple of calls. I remember the one lady, wonderful, such a great lady. I called her and she just, what? You get what? Now what do I do? You got to be kidding me. I said, it's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's okay. She goes, well, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I said, you're okay. And almost all the reactions were just like, hey, I mean, if you're still in this business, we're going with you. Like, we're not going with anybody else. We're going with you.
Yeah.
That was the overwhelming response. I actually had people calling me too. It was really funny because we worked so hard. We resigned, we got our business activated, did all the compliance stuff you got to do, and then started hitting the phones really, really, really hard to make those notification calls, I think it was called. And after the day went on, all of a sudden people started calling me that I hadn't got to yet. Because all these clients, a lot of them run in the same circles and they're calling each other saying, hey, you got to call Travis because I heard he called me and told me that he left and you got to get your stuff moved over.
Yeah.
And so I got people calling me going, hey, why haven't you called me yet? So it was kind of interesting.
It's all on the personal level. Like me doing what I do, a lot of people like in my local market, they know I speak with a lot of financial advisors. They're looking to make a change. They're looking for an advisor and they're like, I've never heard like one person ever say, man, like I love XYZ big box company. Like I love them. I trust them. It's always, you know, I love Travis Jensen or, I don't like, this specific person like with that big box firm. It's so personal. And I've told this story so many times, but my doctor, he left a big box hospital system a couple years ago. I've known him forever. He's done a great job. And like when he left, I was calling like begging to go to his new practice because it's so much more work to build rapport and trust with another person again that has done right for you than, spend a couple hours filling out some paper to, transfer to, a new firm. The fact that I was going to have to get up and, drive 30 minutes in a car and, build this new relationship with this person, with my family, like time and time again. I feel like I took the path of least resistance by going to another practice with my with my old doctor.
Without a question. And that's what advisors should reflect upon in their own minds if they're considering a move. And a good analogy may be, let's think about tax professionals, right? My assumption is that most advisors have a close relationship with their tax professional. That's my assumption. If your CPA called you and said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, I'm moving my practice 3 doors down, you'd follow them every time. There's no, without a question, if my CPA said that she was moving, there's no way that I don't follow her. There's no circumstance that I don't follow her.
Yeah.
And that's the level of like trust and service that we give to our clients. And so just put yourself in their shoes. And if you can't say that, then you probably haven't earned it and you probably shouldn't move. But my guess is that if you've been successful and entrepreneurial and take care of people well, you've probably earned it.
Yeah, I mean, I've helped over 1,000 financial advisors do this, and when you start at a firm and they train you, and get you in the industry, and a lot of firms have really great training, but they also have the ability to plant some ideas in your head really, really easy that are always, even if you're 30 years in the industry, like deep down, still embedded, in your brain. And a lot of them are, you need the brand. You're only going to bring 50% of your practice minimum, that you're going to be so busy, bogged down running a practice that you're not going to have time to take care of your clients or grow your business, which, kind of goes on to the next part of this. Hey, breaking in real quick. I really hope you're enjoying this episode and finding my YouTube channel of value. If you're a high performing financial advisor that can use somebody as a guide or a resource to explore all your transition options out there in the marketplace, I'm a non-biased, independent transition consultant that can help make this process so much easier for you. And another plus, it costs absolutely nothing to work with me. If you want to have a conversation, please feel free to text, call, email, DM me. My contact information is all over this episode, and I'll let you get back to it. So not only did you bring, a significant part of your practice with you. I mean, what was your assets under management when you left?
I left and it was flirting. It was right about 40.
All right, awesome. And I mean, you've told me about, the monster growth that you've had since you've launched your practice. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So we're like, what are we, 16 months or 18 months post transition. And as of, we're the first part of August here. As of right now, we're about 85 million. So far, year to date, we've done about 40 million in new assets. And
How?
there's going to be about five more that comes over this month.
It's amazing, man. Like, but people are like how? I think a lot of people, coming from where you've come from or a firm like it, thinks that's too good to be true. Like, what do you think the reasons for that were?
What are the reasons for the mindset, or what are the reasons
No,
for the
what are the reasons for the exponential growth that you've had?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's a few things. Namely, it's that what I found is people love to do business with small businesses. And especially the higher net worth individuals, they have just been so attracted to this niche feel in our market. There's very few independent firms. There's very few folks that really focus on comprehensive planning. And it's just been such a gravitational pull, especially up the net worth scale. And we're unlocking, we've unlocked new ways to do business and new services and new technologies. And the referrals have been the huge catalyst for all this. I mean, it's almost exclusively referrals. We do a bunch of marketing, we do some lead generation, but it just pales into comparison from the referrals.
How are you able to communicate with your clients now differently or more frequently? Like, what are some of the things that you were doing that you couldn't do before?
Yeah, so there's a lot of them, and just things as simple as like there's more creativity with social media interactions. There's more creativity in how you can send out mass emails. There's more creativity with how you can communicate through things like newsletters. It's easier for the clients to contact us. So a great example now that clients have loved is I just send them an email quick. Here's my booking link. Set up a time to chat about this. They love it. Um, there's a little bit more flexibility on the monitored texting stuff, which is fairly small, but it matters. Just more flexibility in all channels of communication.
That's awesome. I love it. So I read an article one time. I forget where it was, but 80% of financial advisors that left their advisor, it was due to lack of communication.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've seen with so many people that have gone independent is just being able to be more proactive
Yeah.
in mass. So, if something happens with Israel or something happens in Iran or, whatever it is, the things that are really keeping your clients up at night, being able to, respond to that in your voice, the
Yeah.
person that they trust versus sending out some cookie cutter thing from, a chief investment officer that they have never met before is just so much more impactful, in my opinion. And you could only be so many places at once as a financial advisor, having hundreds of clients. Being able to do that, being able to see you on Facebook and seeing the things that you're doing with your family, seeing the things that you're being able to do in the community. All of these things are just additional touches to help a client feel like they belong, for a prospective client to help you, differentiate yourself versus some of the other, competitors out there.
Yeah.
I just think it makes such a humongous difference.
For sure. And I mean, you touch on a great example there. You know, today, if I wanted to send out communication to all clients, I can take this, I could record a video, my face, explaining a situation or bringing up a topic. We do this every few months. Maybe it's a tax planning, maybe it's whatever, saying, hey, Travis here. Remember to do X, Y, or Z, or here's what's going on about A, B, C. Make sure to call Kristen to set that up or use our booking link to set a time to arrange your own appointment.
Yeah.
And it just works great. It's so great. It's so personal. It's been awesome.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy for the growth, and you obviously deserve it through your hard work. Um, we talked about a ton of different benefits today. I mean, for someone that's considering independence, what are some of the downsides that, either growing pains that you've had or, things that have been taking getting used to, having a lot of things taken care of for you on the W-2 side? Have there been any struggles for you?
It's a good question. There's a little more work. I feel like I get all the help I want. Now again, I'm at Commonwealth and I looked at a lot of different firms and I really thought that Commonwealth did an exemplary job of support. So I can't speak to other firms. I'm sure they all do great, but the support that I get is out of this world. Like if I need help with something, I call in, I get a real person nearly immediately and they know the answers.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I'm sacrificing. In fact, I feel like my service level's considerably better. I honestly can't give you a drawback other than you're going to have to learn how to be a business owner. You're going to have to figure out how to sign a lease, pay a light bill,
Yeah.
run QuickBooks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not crazy different. Health insurance,
Yeah.
but just find somebody locally and go trust them.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even do some of that stuff. I think one of the beauties of the independent side is, you pay for what you use, you don't pay for what you do. You can control your P&L, and that gives you the ability to outsource a lot of things. Like, so for example, like in my business, I mean, I don't even know my login for QuickBooks. Like my CPA, my CPA, he sees that on a quarterly basis. He
Yep.
does all the reconciliation. Gusto does all of my payroll. He sees all the things that come in, and I mean, he's putting them in the right places. And once in a while, he has a question, but I mean, that's a big thing that people are really scared about, and it's something that like I've completely outsourced.
Yeah, for sure. It's really scary. And you mentioned it too. There's like a little bit of an echo chamber in the captive environment. Like this is going to be way too much work. Like you're never going to be able to figure out how to be your own HR manager. Like this is way too much work. And I would really challenge that idea because I'm living it. And
Yeah.
when I say it's a few minutes a week, that's what I mean. I mean that single digit minutes a week.
Yeah, I think just one other thing for, advisors to know, and you can tell me if you agree or not, but, not every single little thing like needs to be figured out right away. Yeah, things like, a website, and office space sometimes are really important, and things like that. But you learn a ton of this stuff over time, how to build efficiencies, like while still being able to run a very successful practice.
Yeah,
Um,
that's something that we did not talk about, and I really I missed that when you were asking me. The efficiencies that I've been able to unlock on the independent side has been such a game changer,
yeah.
such a game changer. Everything from model based investing to utilizing AI in our practice to streamline things, take notes, create content. It's just been such a time saver. And when I was at Edward Jones, I didn't have a teammate. I didn't have a dedicated staff. Now I have one full time, one part time client service team, and they've embraced it. They've done an outstanding job, and we can just be so efficient leveraging technology. And Commonwealth has really been forward embracing of it. Like we have Zox AI we can use and other things, and Microsoft Copilot that's firm approved. It can just create so much efficiency in your practice that it can really free up capacity.
It's amazing. I love it. And yeah, I just think another thing to mention is, you know, what through your transition, you building your business to a new level in just, a year and a half, some pretty big, news has dropped about, Commonwealth and, LPL. I'm sure for a while, that took up a little bit, quite a bit of your time, just learning about what's going on and what to expect, making the move to, LPL. So not only have you, accomplished all of these things, you've done it with, a little bit subpar focus with just this massive distraction that you've had in the meantime, which makes your story even more remarkable.
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting. And the funny part is I got the news. So like the official correspondence came out on March 28th, precisely 1 year from my transition day. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a fun little thing. But I kind of at that point in time, I just tried to re-internalize, and right away there was a lot of hubbub and a lot of unknown. Everybody's freaking out, and that's fine. But after I had time to just kind of back away from this thing, I just realized, like what's really important and what can I control? Well, I can control my practice. I can control what happens inside of my four walls. I can control how I service my clients. I can control how I react to this. And so I didn't buy into a ton of the like go out and re-interview 30 different firms again and go on a bunch of trips and do all that stuff. I chatted with you. You were my first call when this happened. We did a quick check over some key players based on my business. I looked at them briefly, and from there, it's just like make a decision, be decisive, and move on.
Yeah.
And for me, that was to stay. And I think I made the right decision. Time will tell. I think I did. But what's most important is what I can control, and that's growing the practice and taking care of our clients better than anybody else can. And so that's what we focused on. And I think that regardless of the firm situation, I think that what we did is right. Focusing on our business, focusing on taking care of our clients, and not buying into the noise.
I love it, man. I love how focused you are, and how you're just really good at not getting strayed away from the main goal, which is taking care of clients. I think it's awesome, man. It's for people that are taking a look at potentially, leaving, a W-2 firm. They're kind of on the fence. Do you have anything to say, or like any tips or tricks that you think they should know about?
Yeah, I think it segues back into what we just talked about. Think about what your future should look like. Like, what do you want your practice to be? What do you want your day to look like? When you go to retire, what do you want that to look like? And then reverse engineer it. And from there, just start with the end in mind. And are we laying the foundation to get to where we want to be? And don't settle and don't sacrifice a thing. Because at the end of the day, it's your business, and you need to make sure that you're in control of your future, and don't settle. If you feel like you're being held back in a certain area, you should put a lot of critical emphasis on that. And we're financial advisors, right? We deal with the time value of money all the time. Let's take an arbitrary measure. Let's pretend that we think that we're being held back through marketing, just as an easy one. And we think that if we marketed how we wanted to, we could onboard X amount of clients per month. Extrapolate that out over your career, then assign a present value. That's what you're forfeiting. And I think that if people got objective and focused on the future and not just today and what maybe feels good today, I think that that would open their mind a lot. Don't settle, don't sacrifice anything for your business or your clients, and just be relentless in that pursuit of what you want your future to be. And the other thing that I would say is very important in this business is to think, or of like the order of importance, right? Like servicing your clients should be, in my opinion, the top. Growing your practice, taking care of your future should also be important. I think sometimes we get too focused on like the economics, or especially if people get worried about some big check they're going to get. I would tell them to take that very, very, very far down the gradient of importance and to think about what future do you want for your clients? What future do you want for your practice? And focus there.
I love that. I love that. I can't tell you how many times, upfront economics get in the way of making a really good decision. They'll find a perfect fit. They'll be moving down that direction, and then all of a sudden, this big economic offer comes along, and emotions get into it. They start thinking about, how they could positively impact their family's future, or pay off their house, or do whatever they want. And they start ignoring some of the red flags. And I thought throughout your process, you just did a great job of focusing on what was important. And I really, really respected that throughout the process. Just to add on what you said, I always tell financial advisors, like, there's zero pressure from me when a financial advisor is exploring to leave. I think there's plenty of people that should, stay at a firm like Edward Jones, and they would have a very happy and fulfilling career. I just think it's important. There's an equation that you're going to go through when you're figuring out, should I stay or should I go? And the only thing that I like to tell people is, just make sure that there's no misconceptions, in those inputs you're putting into the equation, to figure out if I should stay or should I go. I'm not the person that's going to make the decision for you. I'm just the person that's going to give you the accurate information for you to make an empowered decision, and a confident decision on if you're going to stay or go. And if an advisor hasn't picked up their head before, I can promise you there's quite a few misconceptions in there that are clouding your judgment. And, after that, if the decision is, still to stay, I mean, more power to you. You're never going to get pressure from someone like myself.
Yeah, it's so important. And you bring up a really good point, which is why myself, in full disclosure, I used Corey for the transition the first time around. And if I would have left Commonwealth, I would have used Corey again. But he provided so much value early in my due diligence when I first left Edward Jones, because he cleared up a lot of misconceptions for me and allowed me to accurately do, a pros and cons analysis. I still remember sitting in my basement with a piece of notebook paper, and it said leave in one column, and it said stay at Edward Jones in the other column. And I wrote down all the reasons why I would leave and all the reasons why I would stay. And when I got back to it, this is only my personal experience, the Edward Jones column was really just kind of filled with things like big brand name. I had a salary at the time, and it all was just selfish, for lack of better terms. Like, the fact that I get a salary at Edward Jones during that time does not benefit my clients at all. It doesn't do a thing for them.
Yeah.
And the other column over here was, and I can't remember it all, but there was like 20 different reasons. And it was like, access to new products, investments, better financial planning software, so on and so forth. I was like, well, the evidence is so compelling right now that this is what's best for my clients. Because at the end of the day, our business is non-existent without the people that trust you. And those are your clients. And if you're not relentlessly looking out for their best interest, I think you're maybe doing a disservice to them and yourself.
I love it, man. That's such good advice. I'm so happy to see the success. It's super clear why you're being successful, and I really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, it's been great, man. It's been great.
I love it. Well, if anybody else has any questions just in terms of what life looks like on the other side, please reach out. Once again, no pressure, but after, helping hundreds of advisors do this from the firm that you're at and thousands of advisors in total, every single time we're learning new experiences, best practices, mistakes to avoid, to make sure you're not running into the same things that people that blaze the path before you are. It's completely free to work with us, and you just truly get an unbiased look in terms of what else is out there without taking a bunch of wrong turns throughout the process. So my contact information's all over my YouTube page. If you have any questions, I hope to connect soon. And Travis, thanks again, man. I can't wait to hear about what's next.
Yeah, thank you. It's great. Appreciate it, Corey.
Yeah, my pleasure.